Hey guys, welcome to Neighbor Stories with JusRead. Today we're diving into some incredible stories about overcoming the toughest neighbor disputes. Our story is titled, Building a New $75,000 Park on Stolen Land. The story starts like this. I never thought I'd become an accidental community activist, but life has a funny way of thrusting you into roles you never expected. My name's Mike, and this is the story of how my quiet suburban life turned into a battle against corrupt homeowners association board members, culminating in the creation of a beautiful new park for our neighborhood. It all started on a sunny Saturday morning in May. I was out for my usual jog around the neighborhood when I noticed something odd at the end of Maple Street. There was a chain-link fence being erected around a large grassy area that had always been open to the public. A group of workers in hard hats were busy pounding stakes into the ground and attaching the fencing. Curious, I slowed to a stop and approached one of the workers. "Excuse me," I called out, slightly out of breath. "What's going on here?" The worker, a burly guy with a salt and pepper beard, looked up at me. "Just putting up a fence, sir. Homeowners Association orders." I frowned, confused. Homeowners Association? But this isn't part of our development. This is public land. The worker shrugged. "Don't know about that. We're just following orders from the Sunnyside Estates Homeowners Association. You'll have to take it up with them." As I stood there, processing this information, I noticed a familiar face approaching from the other side of the fence. My neighbor, Sarah. She looked just as puzzled as I felt. "Mike," she called out, "what's happening here? They can't fence this off, can they?" I shook my head, still trying to make sense of it all. "I don't think so, Sarah. This land doesn't belong to the Homeowners Association. Something's not right here." Sarah's face hardened with determination. "We need to get to the bottom of this. Want to team up and figure it out?" I nodded, grateful for the alliance. "Absolutely. Let's start by checking the property records at the county office." And just like that, our investigation began. Sarah and I spent the next week digging through public records, making phone calls, and talking to our neighbors. What we uncovered was shocking. The land in question was indeed public property, owned by the city and designated as a future park site. However, the Homeowners Association Board, led by its president, Gerald Thompson, had filed false paperwork claiming ownership of the land. They planned to turn it into a private recreation area for Homeowners Association members only, complete with a pool and tennis courts. When we presented our findings to the city council, they were appalled. The city attorney immediately began legal proceedings against the Homeowners Association board members involved in the fraud. But that wasn't enough for us. The community had been deprived of a park for years because of the city's budget constraints. Now that we had everyone's attention, we decided to seize the moment and push for the park we'd always wanted. I stood up at the next city council meeting, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "Members of the council, we've uncovered a great injustice, but we also have an opportunity. This land was always meant to be a park for our community. I propose we come together as a neighborhood and build the park ourselves." The room buzzed with excited whispers. Sarah jumped in to support me. "We've already started gathering pledges from neighbors. We believe we can raise $75,000 to create a beautiful park that will benefit everyone in our area." The council members looked impressed but also hesitant. Councilwoman Martinez spoke up. "That's a commendable goal, but $75,000 is a lot of money. Are you sure you can raise that much?" I took a deep breath. "We're sure? In fact, we've already secured commitments for nearly half that amount. We're prepared to do whatever it takes to make this happen." After some discussion, the council agreed to our proposal on one condition. We had to raise the full $75,000 within 3 months. If we could do that, they would fast-track the necessary permits and provide ongoing maintenance once the park was built. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah and I formed a committee with other enthusiastic neighbors, and we threw ourselves into fundraising. We organized bake sales, car washes, and a community yard sale. We reached out to local businesses for sponsorships and set up a crowdfunding page online. The response from the community was overwhelming. People were angry about the Homeowners Association's deception and excited about the possibility of a new park. Donations poured in, from pocket change collected by kids to sizable checks from local companies. One particularly memorable donation came from Mrs. Abernathy, an elderly woman who lived across from the proposed park site. She hobbled up to me at one of our fundraising events, her eyes twinkling behind thick glasses. "Young man," she said, pressing an envelope into my hand, "I've lived here for 50 years, and I've always dreamed of having a park where I could watch the neighborhood children play. I want you to have this." Inside the envelope was a check for $5,000, her entire savings. I tried to refuse, telling her it was too much, but she wouldn't hear of it. "I'm 85 years old," she said with a chuckle. "What am I saving it for? This park will bring me more joy than any amount of money in the bank." Moments like these kept us going through the long days and sleepless nights. We were racing against the clock, and every dollar counted. As we approached the deadline, we were still about $10,000 short. That's when an unexpected ally emerged. Tom Rogers, a former Homeowners Association board member who had resigned in protest when he discovered the land grab plot. Tom approached me after a community meeting, looking nervous. "Mike," he said, "I want to help. I feel terrible about what Gerald and the others did. I've got $10,000 in savings that I'd like to donate to the park fund." I was stunned. "Tom, that's incredibly generous, but are you sure?" He nodded firmly. I am. It's the right thing to do. Plus," he added with a grin, "I've always wanted one of those bouncy spring riders in the shape of a horse. Think you could make that happen?" I laughed and shook his hand. "Consider it done, Tom." With Tom's donation, we hit our goal just 2 days before the deadline. The entire neighborhood celebrated as if we'd won the lottery. In a way we'd won the right to build our park. But raising the money was just the beginning. Now we had to actually build the thing. We hired a local landscape architect to design the park based on input from the community. It would include a playground, a small basketball court, a picnic area, and plenty of green space. And yes, we made sure to include a horse-shaped spring rider in Tom's honor. The next few months were a flurry of activity. We organized volunteer workdays where neighbors came together to clear the land, plant trees, and assemble playground equipment. Local contractors donated their time and expertise to help with the more technical aspects of the build. Throughout it all, we could see the furious faces of Gerald Thompson and his Homeowners Association cronies watching from their homes. They had been served with legal papers and were facing charges for fraud and misuse of Homeowners Association funds. Their attempts to stop our project through legal channels had all failed, thanks to the overwhelming evidence against them. There were moments of frustration and setbacks, of course, like the time we discovered a broken water main that needed to be repaired before we could proceed, eating into our budget, or the day a summer storm blew through, scattering our materials and destroying a half-built gazebo. But for every problem, there seemed to be a solution. When we needed extra funds for the water main repair, the local plumbers union stepped in and did the work for free. After the storm, so many volunteers showed up to help with the cleanup that we were back on track within days. Finally, after months of hard work, our park was ready. We planned a grand opening ceremony for Labor Day weekend. The whole neighborhood turned out, along with local news crews and city officials. As I stood at the podium, looking out over the crowd gathered on the fresh green lawn, I felt a surge of pride and gratitude. "Friends and neighbors," I began, "today we're not just opening a park, we're celebrating the power of community. When we discovered the attempt to steal this land from the public, we could have just gotten angry and given up. Instead, we came together. We raised money, we volunteered our time, and we built something beautiful." I gestured to the playground behind me, where excited kids were already lining up to try out the equipment. "This park represents the best of our neighborhood. It's a place where our children can play, where families can gather, and where we can all enjoy a bit of nature right here in our community." The crowd cheered, and I saw more than a few teary eyes. "I want to thank everyone who contributed to making this dream a reality," I continued. "From the kids who donated their allowance to the businesses that provided major sponsorships, every contribution mattered. And a special thanks to Mrs. Abernathy and Tom Rogers, whose generous donations pushed us over the top." Mrs. Abernathy beamed from her wheelchair in the front row, while Tom gave a modest wave from the back. "Now," I said with a grin, "let's cut this ribbon and officially open Sunnyside Community Park." Sarah joined me at the podium, and together we cut the big red ribbon. The crowd erupted in cheers as kids rushed past us to be the first on the new playground. As I watched the joyful scene, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to see Officer Jenkins, our local police liaison. "Great job on the park, Mike," he said with a smile. "I thought you'd like to know. We just arrested Gerald Thompson and the other Homeowners Association board members involved in the land fraud. They're being charged with multiple felonies." I nodded, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sadness. "Thanks for letting me know, officer. I hope they learned something from this." As Officer Jenkins walked away, Sarah came up beside me. "Well, we did it," she said, bumping my shoulder with hers. "How does it feel to be a community hero?" I laughed. "I'm no hero. This was a team effort all the way. But I have to admit, it feels pretty damn good." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching kids laugh and play on the new equipment. Parents chatted on benches while elderly neighbors strolled along the winding paths. It was exactly the scene we had imagined when we started this crazy project. "You know," Sarah said thoughtfully, "this whole experience has got me thinking. Maybe we should run for the Homeowners Association board ourselves. After all, someone needs to make sure nothing like this ever happens again." I groaned dramatically. "Sarah, can't we just enjoy the park for a while before you drag us into another project?" She grinned mischievously. "Oh, come on, you know you love a good challenge. Plus, think of all the good we could do." I shook my head, but I was smiling. "Fine, but let's at least wait until tomorrow to start campaigning. Today is for celebrating." As if on cue, Tom Rogers walked up, sporting a cowboy hat and a huge grin. "Hey Mike, Sarah, who wants to see an old man try out that horse spring rider?" We laughed and followed Tom to the playground. As I watched him gleefully bounce on the little horse, surrounded by giggling children, I felt a warmth spread through my chest. This park was more than just a patch of land with some play equipment. It was a symbol of what a community could achieve when it came together against injustice. The saga of the stolen land and the $75,000 park had changed our neighborhood forever. We had faced corruption and greed, and we had overcome it with determination, hard work, and the power of community spirit. As I looked around at the smiling faces and the beautiful park we had created, I knew that whatever challenges we faced in the future, our community would face them together. And who knows, maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it was time to shake things up in the Homeowners Association. But that, as they say, is a story for another day. For now, I was content to enjoy this moment of triumph, surrounded by my neighbors in the park we had built together. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over our new community gathering place, I couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of something truly special for our neighborhood. Update. It's been a year since we opened Sunnyside Community Park, and I'm happy to report that it's become the heart of our neighborhood. Kids play there every day after school, families have picnics on weekends, and we even host community events in the gazebo. But our story didn't end with the park's grand opening. A lot has happened since then, and I think it's time I filled you in. Remember how Sarah suggested we run for the Homeowners Association board? Well, we did just that. It wasn't an easy campaign, let me tell you. Some people were still loyal to the old guard, despite everything that had happened. But we had something they didn't: a track record of actually improving the community. Our campaign slogan was simple: transparency and community first. We went door to door, talked to our neighbors, and laid out our vision for a more open and inclusive homeowners association. We wanted to make sure that every decision was made with the community's best interests in mind, not just a select few. The election was close, but in the end, Sarah and I, along with 3 other like-minded neighbors, won seats on the board. Our first order of business? A complete audit of the Homeowners Association's finances and a review of all its policies. What we found was worse than we'd imagined. Gerald Thompson and his cronies hadn't just tried to steal the parkland, they'd been skimming money from the Homeowners Association funds for years. Inflated contracts to friends companies, unnecessary consulting fees, even straight-up embezzlement. It was a mess. We called an emergency community meeting to share our findings. The room was packed, and you could feel the tension in the air. I stood up to address everyone, my hands shaking a little but my voice steady. "Neighbors," I began, "I wish I had better news to share. But you deserve the truth? Our investigation has uncovered years of financial mismanagement and outright theft by the previous board." The room erupted in angry shouts and gasps. I held up my hands for quiet. "I know you're angry. We all are. But we have a choice to make. We can let this tear our community apart, or we can use it as an opportunity to come together and make things right." Sarah stood up next to me. "We've already contacted the authorities," she added. "The people responsible will face justice. But we need to focus on moving forward. We have ideas for how to recover some of the lost funds and improve our homeowners association, but we want to hear from you too." For the next 2 hours, we had a heated but productive discussion. People shared their frustrations, their ideas, and their hopes for our community. By the end of the meeting, we had a plan. First, we worked with the prosecutor's office to make sure Gerald and his accomplices faced the full consequences of their actions. It was a long legal process, but eventually they all pleaded guilty to various charges of fraud and embezzlement. They were sentenced to a combination of jail time, fines, and restitution payments to the Homeowners Association. Getting that money back was crucial because our next step was to lower homeowners association fees. We figured out that with proper management and without all the theft, we could reduce fees by 20% while still maintaining all our services. You should have seen people's faces when we announced that at the next meeting. It was like Christmas had come early. We also implemented a new system of checks and balances. All financial decisions above a certain threshold now require approval from a resident committee, not just the board. We publish detailed quarterly reports on the Homeowners Association's finances, and we have an independent auditor review our books annually. But it wasn't all about money. We wanted to build on the community spirit that had brought us together to build the park. So we started organizing more events, block parties, holiday celebrations, even a weekly farmers market in the park during summer. One of my favorite new traditions is our monthly Community Improvement Day. We pick a different project each month: cleaning up a local stream, repainting a rusty playground, helping elderly neighbors with home repairs. It's amazing to see how many people show up to help every time. Of course, not everything has been smooth sailing. We've had our share of challenges and disagreements, like the time we had to decide whether to allow backyard chickens. That debate got pretty heated, let me tell you. But we found that as long as we stick to our principles of transparency and community involvement, we can work through just about anything. I have to admit, there were times when the pressure of it all got to me. Late nights poring over budgets, dealing with angry emails from residents, trying to navigate the complex legal issues we inherited. It was exhausting. There were moments when I thought about quitting, about going back to my quiet life before all this started. But then I'd take a walk through the park we built together. I'd see Mrs. Abernathy feeding the ducks by the pond, or Tom giving kids rides on that ridiculous horse spring rider he loved so much, and I'd remember why we were doing all this. One day, about 6 months into our term, I was having a particularly rough day. We'd just found out about another financial irregularity from the old board, and I was dreading having to break the news to the community. I decided to take a break and went for a walk in the park to clear my head. As I was sitting on a bench, feeling sorry for myself, a young boy came up to me. He looked about 8 or 9, with a mop of curly hair and a gap-toothed grin. "Hey, you're Mike, right?" he asked. "The park guy?" I couldn't help but smile. "Yeah, that's me. What's up, buddy?" He plopped down next to me on the bench. "I just wanted to say thanks," he said. "For the park, you know? My mom says before, there was nowhere for us kids to play, but now we come here every day after school. It's awesome." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Thanks, kid," I managed to say. "I'm glad you like it." He nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, it's the best. Oh, and my mom also says you're doing a great job with the, Homeowners Association thing. She says you're honest, not like the old guys." I chuckled. "Well, tell your mom I said thank you. We're trying our best." The boy jumped up. "Cool, I gotta go now. My friends are waiting to play basketball. See ya?" As I watched him run off to join his friends, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was why we'd taken on this challenge, not for recognition or power, but to make our community better for everyone. That brings us to today. We're about to start our second year on the Homeowners Association board, and while there's still a lot of work to do, I'm proud of what we've accomplished so far. Our community is stronger, more united, and more engaged than ever before. The park stands as a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together, but it's more than that now. It's a daily reminder of the power of community, of standing up against injustice, and of the positive change that can come from ordinary people deciding to make a difference. As for me, I'm not the same person I was when this all started. I've learned a lot about leadership, about community organizing, and about myself. I've discovered strengths I never knew I had, and I've learned to lean on others when I need support. Sarah and I have become a great team, both on the Homeowners Association board and off. There's even been some talk about us running for city council next year, but that's a decision for another day. For now, I'm content to keep serving my community, one day at a time. Whether it's managing Homeowners Association finances, mediating neighbor disputes, or just pushing kids on the swings in the park we built together, I know that every small action can make a big difference. As I sit here in my favorite spot in the park, watching the sun set over our little slice of paradise, I can't help but feel grateful. Grateful for the challenges that pushed me to grow, for the neighbors who became friends, and for the community that came together to turn a plot of stolen land into something beautiful. Who knows what the future holds? There will always be new challenges to face, new problems to solve, but I know that whatever comes our way, our community will face it together. And that's a pretty great feeling. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed this epic neighbor showdown, please smash that like button, comment with some house emojis to show your support, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks a lot, and I will see you again tomorrow with another amazing story.